This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Play down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier! 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. 1-2 wicket Tunga. Here's Moy, right-footed. 1-0 Huddersfield Town. Lindelof misses his header. De Quattro's in. Round De Gea. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. Here's Sanka to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Tommins scored. Tommins has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward. De Quattro's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Quattro scores. Laurent De Quattro scores.
Welcome to Andy Takes That Chance, the warm-up. Ding-dong merrily on high. To the top half we have risen. Matt Shaw, Brady Frost, Chris Markham here to do some blethering. Departure away at Chelsea. Happy days they were indeed. So welcome back to the warm-up, and this week we will look forward to two games. Firstly, Town visit our neighbours Barnsley, who have had a little revival of late. And then we host the new version of Carlisle United, as we seem to get Blackburn around Christmas every year now. It seems to be the done thing.
Tranmere as well.
Tranmere.
Oh my, we used to play Tranmere every year.
And they say it's a random fixture computer, but we know different.
And crew, random.
Town and Barnsley are old rivals and have played each other on 74 occasions. Town have 32 wins, 15 draws, and Barnsley have won 27. This week's memorable game was at Oakwell in 2003. A Martin Smith cross and a towering header by the big bad Booth gave Huddersfield a 1-0 win, which was sealed in part thanks to an incredible save onto the post by Andy Takes That Chance guest summariser Phil Senior. Town looked like they'd have a decent chance of staying up after that day, but sadly, administration, a little bit of embarrassment, and relegation were not too far away. I don't know if you remember that game, Chris.
I do vaguely, yeah. I remember that header. It was. Did he go up with the keeper?
No, it was a bit of a loop. I think Martin Smith got it on the right-hand side, whipped it over, and Booth I think he stuck it down the middle, though. But it was
yeah, I thought it was something like that.
Yeah, so let's have a look at Blackburn as well, because we're doing both teams this one. It's a Christmas bumper bonanza. Blackburn, so we've played 90 times. I didn't realise we'd played Blackburn so many times. It's an incredible amount, really. With Town winning 24, 34 draws and 32 Blackburn wins. Not often have the opposition had a better head-to-head record since we've started doing this, and Blackburn certainly do. The memorable game I've picked here is from September 1993. So even if you weren't born at that time, Brady, possibly.
I wasn't.
And you will obviously have seen this on YouTube because it's one of the classic clips from Huddersfield Town down the years. And it was the League Cup. So you remember League Cup in 1993. 92-93, sorry. Huddersfield had a bit of a playoff hangover after losing to Peterborough the year before. But we actually saw some decent performances in the League Cup, and Alan Shearer played up front for Blackburn, a very young Alan Shearer at the time, and he scored an absolute wonder goal at Leeds Road, curled it in off the post from 25 yards, and I think it was Iffy and Uravine, Ewan Roberts' head that got the equaliser for Town. And then we went to Blackburn. Blackburn, obviously top of the Premier League, it was the Premier League then, I think, wasn't it? So top end of the Premier League, really good side, spending a lot of money. And they found themselves 2-0 up just after half time. And then probably one of the best comebacks you'll see from a Town team. It didn't get completed, but Simon Ireland was the man doing the damage on that day. And he's probably not a very well-known Town player. And he ran rings round Blackburn. And Ewan Roberts scores a sort of an infamous goal where the goalkeeper kicks it straight at Ewan's heels from outside the box. And it manages to go in. And Gary Barnett also scores. But Town 3-2 up. Sadly, Alan Shearer then got busy and we ended up losing the game 4-3. But if you check that one out on YouTube, it's a bit of a barnstormer, is that one. So enough of me. Brady, give us the lay of the Feast of Stephen. How's it looking?
Who do you want me to do first, Matthew?
It's up to you. Barnsley.
All right, I'll start with Barnsley. So yeah, they're 13th in the table. I've basically done the same prep for both. They're on the same amount of points as us, but Barnsley have identical goal difference to us. They've also won the same number of games, 8 wins, but they've also lost 8 like us. Got 3 wins in the last 5, tend to average over 11 shots a game. But as we kind of mentioned, quite a lot's happened at Barnsley already. Gerhard Struber left, went to New York Red Bulls, and they've got Valerian Ismail in, and he seems to really have transformed the team in a short space of time. So it's going to be a good game, this. I think I'm sure we'll go on to, but when we last had a Yorkshire derby on Boxing Day, this is a game I'd really have loved to have gone.
Yeah, I agree, massively agree with that.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, so strengths and weaknesses of Barnsley, Chris, just from looking at things, they've had a bit of a new manager bounce there. Hit a little bit of form. I think they'd won 3 in a row and then lost to Swansea last time out, didn't they? So seem to play a bit of a 3-4-3 system, quite fluid, and look like they're hurting quite a lot of teams at the moment.
Yeah, do you know what? They're doing unbelievable. I mean, obviously, having lost the manager as well, who was obviously done so well for him last season. And I think everyone's just been waiting for him to go down since they came back up. And, they've been really creative in the transfer market, and they've actually come up with, a real identity, which you probably wouldn't associate with Barnsley. But I'm sure people, similar to almost what people said when obviously we started with David in terms of trying to create that identity and that revolution. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game. Obviously, like you said, they're in a good bit of form recently. If you go a bit further back, they've won 4 and lost 4 of the last 8. So they tend to be a bit all or nothing, like you say, the 3-4-3. I think it can be a really difficult system for teams to game plan against. So I'll be intrigued to see how we go about playing against that, because obviously it can go quickly into a back 5, particularly out of possession, to make it hard to break down. But then obviously you can, with the 3 forwards and wing backs, still pile people forwards as well. So it's going to be interesting. If you look at them, I think they've got a really interesting style. I'm going to talk about in possession at the moment. So they have the fewest crosses per game in the league for any team this season. Now, Championship's always regarded as, if you get it out, get it wide, get it in. And obviously we've spoken a lot about teams like that on the pod, whereas I think Barnsley are a real team. They do play with that continental sort of style where they try and work the ball into better areas to have better shots. They do have more shots per game than us as well. And they have a couple of 2 or 3 really key players, which I'm sure we'll come on to. In terms of weaknesses for Barnsley and how we might get at them, it's going to be set plays. They've conceded the most set play goals per game, or most set play goals this season. And interestingly, from open play, they've conceded the fewest shots out of any team in the league. And when you consider, obviously, the type of team and where Barnsley are expected to be in the table, they have more shots than us. It's a really incredible stat, that. So there must be, I think, like I said, the 3-4-3 going back into a back 5-5-4-1 is really hard to break down. They obviously work hard for each other. They've got a lot of energy. And do you know what? It's a really interesting game. It's going to be a lot harder than I probably anticipated when you actually get down and have a look at it.
So how would Huddersfield themselves are going to play Barnsley, but what sort of key players have you guys picked out for Barnsley? There's quite a few that could potentially hurt us. The one I've picked out is Connor Chaplin. He's a bit like a budget David Brooks, if you like, that we came up against for Bournemouth last week. He gave us a couple of problems last year as well at Barnsley. Decent player, looks like he's improving to me. I quite liked Luke Thomas off the bench, but Connor Chaplin seems a solid player. Jumps into those little pockets behind the striker. Obviously, everyone knows about the striker. But yeah, he's a dangerous one, and one that we probably need to keep an eye on, especially going from the form last year as well. But Brady, who have you managed to pick out of the Christmas box for Barnsley?
Well, I've gone for. There's no secret with this one, like it was for Watford. I've gone for Alex Mowat. I think he's a great player. He was kind of out of contract, or he's out of contract soon. I think he's Town should maybe get, just my opinion, but loves a shot from distance. I think why I've picked him for this game is they brought in Matty James on loan from, I think it's Leicester, and since he's come in, it's allowed Mowat to get further forward, and he does love a shot from distance, and he's one of those players that you always see in the like goal of the season reels at the end, because he does love a long range goal. So I think he's a bit of a danger man. He seems quite key to this Barnsley side, and Neil Warnock wants him apparently in January. So there you go. If it's good enough for Warnock, he's good enough for me.
What have you got, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with them. I agree with both of those shouts. I like them both. Chaplin was someone we looked at when I was still at Town, and Mowat obviously is someone who's obviously got great quality. I'll take the tap in, lads. I like that you've left that for me. And speaking of tap ins, obviously I'm going to go for Woodrow. He scored 30% of Barnsley's goals this season, second most shots per game in the Championship this season for all players. And interestingly as well, the 9th most assists across all players as well. So a lot of the goals go through him if you combine that 30% with the ones that he assists as well. So I think, I think we spoke about on one of the other pods before around, I know you guys spoke about replacing someone when we were looking to replace Grant and talking about Woodrow. I just think he's gone far beyond our price range. I think with his instincts and obviously what he's managed to do and what he's doing with Barnsley, I think it's, and as we'll go on to, I'm sure, when we talk about Blackburn in a little bit, it's going to be, we're coming up against two of the best strikers in the league in the next couple of games.
So like you've said, Chris, so Barnsley have that 3-4-3 system that goes into a 5-4-1 in defence. Like you said, tough to break down. How do Town break that down then? Barnsley probably put 10-ish behind the ball and leave Woodrow up front, I would imagine, if pending on selection. How would you look to break a team like that down, and what weapons can... obviously positive weapons on this time, not like what Neil says on the podcast, but what sort of positive weapons do you think we can use to defeat them?
Sometimes when you're obviously playing a team that's obviously banking up with the 5 and the 3 centre-backs, and their 3 centre-backs are good, they're solid in the air. What they aren't mobile, and they can look a bit wooden at times. But I think if we load empty, I won't use the word empty, but aimless crosses in there, which isn't our style, but if you can, it can be quite easy to do that when you're playing against a back 5. And just put sort of aimless crosses in there. I think they'll eat them up all day. So I think we need to be a bit more clever, maybe a few more like combinations. And certainly, like I keep saying it, I'm still sticking by it. In this league, it's either moments of worldly genius or mistakes. And I think we've seen a few of those of either teams whenever obviously we've been playing. But I think we're probably going to need something like that. Maybe if someone with a bit of trickery, a bit of pace, and maybe it might be one for one of the 10s, the wingers, to maybe just do something out of the ordinary and just I think you've got to try and bring them out, like suck them out of that deep block and those 3 centre-backs. Clever movement from the forwards, opposite movements. You get your strikers coming towards the ball and your midfielders, maybe Lewis O'Brien's going in behind. I know he had a good game there last year with that wonder goal, so he could potentially be someone as well.
Brady, have you picked any key players out for Town?
Yeah, I have. It kind of follows on from what Chris says. I picked him quite a lot, but talking to Carlo, who we'll hear a bit later, they do seem to struggle with any strikers that have a bit of pace with their back 3. And I know it's not our style, but balls over the top, and I think it's just kind of, if we play quick balls and get balls in behind, and we have those pacey forwards, I think that's where we're going to get some joy. It's a shame, but this would have been a great game for Karoma. But obviously I can't pick him. So I have picked him Benza. I know I seem to pick him a lot, but I do think, particularly for this Barnsley game, he's quick, he's tricky. I think he's exactly the type of opponent who can get some joy out of these 3 centre-backs. So, I've gone for him Benza. I think this is going to be a really open game, though, just talking about it in general. I think it might be high scoring. And again, because we're on identical points and identical wins and losses and pretty much the same goal difference, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's a high scoring draw, but I'm sure we'll come on to that.
What have you got, Chris? I've got 2 players that I've picked out for Town that could make a difference, so I'm going to throw it to you and then see if you pick one of them, and then I'll pick the other.
All right, I'm going to stick, I know you've got obviously the conch there, but I'm going to go for I need some sort of some sort of like relic or something. But for Lewis O'Brien, like I mentioned before, he had a good game there last year. And as I've just mentioned there, I think we're going to need someone to break forward, support the strikers, particularly against those three centre-backs. We'll need someone to make the life difficult for them down the side of them. As Brady's mentioned, they don't like quick play and movement behind them. And I think they'll find it difficult to pick runners from deep. And as well, obviously, a Yorkshire derby, all action. I just think he's great. So I'm going to go for Lewis O'Brien again.
There's your Lewis Conch. I'll throw that
Beautiful.
in for you. So the two players I've picked, so one of them was Ryan Scofield because I thought he was outstanding against Watford. I didn't see him come for the ball a lot in the box, aerially, and I'm really interested to see how improved Ryan Scofield is because I think he's been fantastic since he's come into the side, and I'm really excited. I just find it really exciting when a young guy from Huddersfield who supports Huddersfield is playing for Huddersfield. I just there's nothing better, to be honest. As a fan, to see a fan playing. I don't know that's quite an idealistic, cheesy line, if you like, but I think it's great. So for me, I really want to see Ryan Scofield's progression and hopefully to keep it up. But the man that I'm going to pick really is it's along your O'Brien theme, Chris. Against Watford, I thought the first 20-25 minutes, Lewis O'Brien didn't have the best of games in the first 20-25. And what Carlos did was he swapped him with Bacuna, who also didn't play well in the first 20-25 minutes. And they both kind of switched over. Bacuna went centrally and Lewis went left. And then they switched back later on as well. But that just seemed to reinvigorate both of them. And after that early point, they both played quite well. And it's that combination again for me of Bacuna and O'Brien, which, when you said it's going to take somebody who can, create something, or it's going to create, or somebody who makes an absolute mess. That's just Juninho Bacuna, isn't it? All over. And for me, Bacuna is due to, create or score something for us and win us a game. I think he's overdue that. And so I'm going to pick Juninho Bacuna as our key man because he's playing. We just need to see a little bit more from him. And last week when I picked Fraser Campbell, it was the same thing. We needed to see a little bit more from Fraser Campbell, and I think we perhaps just need to see a little bit more from Bacuna, and I'll be delighted as well if he delivers. So, as it's a double bumper Christmas bonanza, which almost said in Benza then. Yeah, let's go with the strengths and weaknesses of Blackburn Rovers. Chris, Blackburn have got a lot of good attacking options. As Brady may have mentioned, they've got some injuries, haven't they, Brady? But there are some good attacking options there, and there's a lot of players I quite like from Blackburn. And Tony Carrs is over there. Tony Carrs, when he was at Huddersfield, great guy, brilliant coach. I'm really pleased to see him doing well, and players are coming through as well. There's a couple of young players coming through at Blackburn, which is great, and testament to the good work Tony Carrs does. What have you made of Blackburn then, and where are their strengths in particular?
I think this is the two pretty chalk and cheese teams, really. You've got the 3-4-3 of Barnsley, who will be fairly happy to sort of sit in a disciplined shape and soak up pressure and try and hit on the break. Whereas you've got Blackburn, who are the third most possession-based team in the league, 4-3-3, expansive, open. I think that they've lost 3 out of the previous 4 before Boxing Day, obviously where they play Sheff Wednesday. So I think they're similar to us. They're good at home, poor away. I think they've got a few interesting. Sort of quirks. They have the second most shots per game, so it's going to be a shootout. But they also concede the fourth most shots per game, which is a really interesting conundrum. I think this one is the one I probably differ a little bit from Brady, where I think the Barnsley game, when we get onto the predictions in a minute, I think the Barnsley game could be tight. I think this one could be a shootout. This could be like your 3-3, 4-3, 3-2 type affair. So, I'll look at that and see they've got some obviously really talented players at the top end of the pitch. Absolute carnage at centre-back at the minute. I think you mentioned Bradley Johnson played there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Brady. So, you can see sort of where they're at the minute. And I just think it could be a really exciting, open, free-flowing game.
Brady, what are you making of them, and lead us into key players?
So again, they've actually got the second highest scoring team in the league, 34 goals. So they've got a lot of firepower. I think again, as you lads mentioned, they've got a lot of injuries to centre backs. So we're a bit chalk and cheese at home. We're doing really well at home at the moment, and a bit tricky away. And because this game's at home, I do kind of fancy it. I think what we need to be kind of wary of is they have got, for me, they've got better attacking players than us. I've not picked Adam Armstrong, but again, he's scored 15 goals already this season. He's decent, but I've actually gone for Harvey Elliot. I think this was a bit of a coup to get this young lad from Liverpool. Really hyped, but from what I've seen from some Blackburn fans and again, kind of people in the league in general, he is really impressing. Still only 17, and I think it's quite interesting. Certainly from kind of highlights I've seen for a player so young, he is actually really good at like creatively drifting into kind of pockets of space and like doing his work from there. He's not your typical like pacey winger, and I think it'd be good to see him on when we play Blackburn, because I think he's a really interesting player. But they do have the attacking players to hurt us, even though they are weak defensively. But I do agree with Chris. I think it is going to be a bit of a shootout, this one.
Yeah, I look at that and I like their attacking talent, and I've picked 3 players who to look at, and that immediately tells you they've got injuries, but I've still managed to pick 3 players out. One of them was my first one was Harvey Elliot. The second one is Adam Armstrong. Obviously, he's a player I really liked when I saw him play for England under 17s. England had a really good under 17 side when he was there with a number of different players. I'm not going to name them because I might get my sides mixed up, but I think he was in the same one potentially as Dom Solanke and that group of players, Patrick Roberts, and I think England actually won the 17s Euros that year. And he was one of the key players, played up front as well, and I've kind of followed him a little bit since, and he's taken a little while, I think possibly due to his stature, to get to grips with first team football, but he's really doing it now, and I think he's one of the better strikers in this league, capable of scoring a variety of goals, really a real talent, and Blackburn will do well to keep hold of him, I think, over the next 12 months, and for me, he's the with Elliot, and I won't name any more because Chris might, but he's one of the main threats, I would say, Chris.
Yeah, it's again, you just take my tap in. I've already had Woodrow, but as I mentioned before, they're going to be the 2 strikers who, arguably 2 of the best 3 strikers in the league. We spoke about Solanke previously. The amazing thing though, he's so dominant for them. He's such a focus. Just to elaborate on that point, the second highest shots per game in the league is Woodrow with 3.6, as we just mentioned. 4.9 is what Adam Armstrong is having at shots per game. That's 33% nearly more than what Carlo Woodrow's having. So just to give you an idea of how much of a focal point he is, just to highlight your point, Matt, really. The one I'm going to go for then is someone who really complements him, and he's an absolute, I really liked him for quite a while, and I think he's almost just coming into his own now, and he's a really good foil for the other 2. I like with that front 3 that at times in the game they can all play off different parts. So Elliot might occasionally find himself as the 9. Armstrong can play either of the sides. And the one I'm going to talk about is Sam Gallagher. He's a big unit from Southampton, 6'3". People used to say he could edit, but now I think he's a real sort of specimen. He's a real threat, and he really does give you a nice balance. I think if Town had somebody like him with the mobility and the strength to really just mix it up a bit, I think it'd be someone like that ilk would be a really good match for them. And like I said, because he can play as well off the sides, he's mobile enough to play off the sides, he does a job defensively, or he's willing to. I think Sam Gallagher's a really good foil for the 2 you've mentioned. I think, go back to yours as well, Brady, Harvey Elliot, I think it's a really good development loan. I think the thing is, everyone's thought he's always had the talent, and I think he's one of the players who, there's arguments, isn't there, for development at the minute. Do you send him out or do you keep him in? I think it was a really good move from Liverpool to send him out and get used to it, and really sort of get him a good grounding in it, because I think we've all seen his haircuts and his earrings and stuff, which is absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Particularly in the modern day, you need a bit of that. But I think it's a really good loan for him, with a really good sort of solid working class manager like a Tony Mowbray, and someone still quite close that Liverpool can keep an eye on him. So I think the 2 you've come up with, and between the three of us there, yeah, it's a handful, that front three.
Yeah, 15 goals this season has Armstrong, which is quite incredible, really, already. Only better by Ivan Toney. I didn't realise both of them had that many goals either. Blackburn have got quite a lot of threat that they can offer us, even with their injury crisis. How do Huddersfield combat then a team like that? For me, Chris, it seems like there'll be quite a few open spaces potentially, especially if Blackburn are lacking centre-backs. You may be looking at some of the more attacking players Huddersfield have got, and Carol Eiting in particular as well, to open them up maybe.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like I said, I think this type of game suits us down to the ground, and I think it's a real big one, like I mentioned at the beginning, the fact that we're at home and they're not, because they're very similar to us in terms of strong at home, poor away. So I think it really sort of suits us. I think it suits our wing backs as well, our full backs. I can see Toffolo having a good game against Elliot. Elliot might not be as keen going back and following Toff going the other way. So I'm gonna go for one of our full backs. So I'm gonna go for Toffolo in this one. If you can keep Elliot fairly quiet going one way, I think you can have a lot of joy going the other way. Although Niambi is a good physical right back who I quite like.
He is, yeah. Brady, what have you gone with Blackburn?
Well, so again, I think, well, we kind of touched on the key player, but their injuries to their centre backs, and again, that'll be a good area to test. But we've talked about it a bunch of times, and the key player I've picked really is Naby Sarr. As we've kind of said so many times, Matt, he when he plays well, Town tend to play well.
Naby Moore, as I've christened him now. So if he plays well, Naby Moore. Yeah.
What if he don't play well?
I'm still disaster.
Darren Moore.
Disaster.
Yeah, it's a good job you caveat that where you're working on that. I think you can do better, mate. But yeah, I think this is a game when Naby Sarr needs to be good, because we've talked about that attacking threat, and I do think we can get some out of it. And we've not really scored many from set pieces, but he is a danger in the box. And if they've got a bit of a centre back crisis, he could maybe be a bit of an attacking threat as well. So
it's a good point, Nat, because they've had a good record from defensive set players, and Tony Mowbray teams tend to do. So it'd be interesting to see, like you say, without the centre backs, how that affects it.
Yeah. So as I've mentioned already, Carol Eiting is my key man for this game. In a game which is going to open up and be full of space, then you're looking at your more creative players to find your attacking outlets and link the play together. So Carol Eiting for me, I pick him quite a lot. But yeah, he's the one I've picked. Chris, did you pick a Town player as key? I'm not sure you did.
Yeah, I said Toff.
Toff, of course you did, yeah. Right, so with that in mind, I think it's time to jump to our feature, and it's Return to the Mac. Okay, so Return to the Mac. So we're going to do this over the two games, aren't we, this week? So Brady, what were the results of the last one?
Oh, you put me on the spot here, but I don't check when I lose, and it's the first time I haven't won in a while.
Are you off the mark? Are you, Matt?
Did you lose, Brady? Wow.
Are you off the mark, mate?
I think I am. And do you know what? I was quite happy for any of the three to win this one because I thought they were all pretty decent.
I think it was a good one.
Hang on, I was quite surprised, actually.
Checking.
I was quite surprised. But I think it's very close. It's very close, yeah. It's about 2%.
So Naki Wells got 37 and Ronnie Jepson got 38. So, very close. Just bit me. But, good winner, worthy winner, to be fair.
Yeah, good lad. Was
Rocket Ron.
Big presence, Ronnie. Big presence. So this week, we're going to go for a couple. I usually go first because I've usually finished last. But on this occasion, who wants to go first? Brady or Chris? We'll go Chris because Brady usually win this, so we'll go Chris first.
Yeah, I finished last as well. This is an interesting one, this. Obviously picking for two games. We're now starting to get to the more trickier challenges as well, which is also good. I don't think we've had this guy before. I'm considering I'm supposed to be keeping count. It's to be honest, we haven't. But I'm going to go for, I think we spoke about across both teams, we've spoke about the lack of pace and mobility when you do get down and expose Barnsley's centre-backs and being physical and strong. We've spoke about Bradley Johnson playing at centre-back for Blackburn, and I think I look at Lenihan, who's the other centre-back, and I think he's not someone who will enjoy someone being direct, aggressive against him. And bearing in mind, for obviously all you poll voters, and I know everyone who votes on the poll will have listened, so I'm thinking, I'm talking in his prime. I'm talking in his prime here. And I think if we had this guy who could run the channels, could hold it up, could take the ball, could dribble, could go past people. On his day, obviously, at one point we were thinking straight to the Premier League he would go. I'm going to go Huddersfield lad in keeping with your Ryan Scofield. I'm going to go Delroy Facey.
Oh, I was joking as well. That's 2 in 2 weeks, I've guessed.
2 in 2 weeks you've called, mate. So Delroy, I'm going to go with Delroy.
Delroy Facey. Go on then, Braidhouse. What have you gone for?
Now, okay, did we? I'm going to, again, this just shows the good prep of the pod. Have we had Pilkington before? Because
Yes, I think so.
We have. Right, okay, that's fine.
I think so.
Okay, I'll go for my rogue choice. This was more for the Blackburn game, just because they've got a bit of a centre-back problem, and I think they'll rough it up. And I'm talking about first season of this player, because I really rated him. I'm going for Laurent Depoitre, because I actually think he would have been class in the Championship. And, you know, I always thought with him and Mounier had more kind of the technical skill, and, you know, was better with his feet, but Depoitre would run for you all day, and as we saw with Caballero, he'll batter people as well. So I picked Depoitre. I really liked him. Kind of shame what happened with him in the second season, because I don't know. The thing what made me laugh. Sorry, Matt.
Of toilets, at the canal side, so he had to go across the road. I think that's probably maybe what upset him. But there we go.
What made me laugh though was, I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember when we signed him and we hadn't got the kit yet? So he was in that polo, and he honestly looked like some bloke from the pub. It just didn't look like a footballer because he was huge as well.
Just got him from the Peacock.
Mate, no, it's great.
So I'm a bit torn on this one. I've also not prepared properly, so there is that. But I think this time, because my main thinking here is that Town squad's not the biggest, and we've got a couple of injuries, and we don't have many. When you look to the bench, our first 11's not bad; it's quite decent. But when you look to the bench, you think there's probably not a lot of. There's a lot of kids on there and a lot of unknown quantities who could come good at some point. I'm sure they will. But there's not someone that you look at and you think, do you know what? Let's throw him on. He's going to really change things up. So I'm going to cheat really, because I spoke to him the other day and it's fresh in my mind. So I'm going to go for Ian Dunn, because I think Town lack a game and Bakun is starting at the minute, so we lack a game changer from the bench. So I'm going to pick. I'm going to go full TalkSport Moose here and say my friend Ian Dunn. He probably he called me Cozzy the other day, so he's probably not his friend. But I was using his Zoom, so it said Cozzy in the bottom corner, and he looked at it and went, "Yeah, I tell you what, Cozzy," and I was like, he doesn't know.
You do look similar.
I'm not his friend
fair,
after
twins.
all. I can't go full Moose on him. But yeah, Ian Dunn, because the reason for Dunny is because of what I said. You need someone to come off the bench and change the game, and and again, Depoitre was all right at that, I guess. That's it. So return to the Mac. Chris, remind us who you went for.
Delroy.
Brady.
Peak Delroy. I've got to stress peak Delroy. Can we remember what peak Delroy was like?
Was there a peak? Delroy was about 16 when he was peak, wasn't he?
And he was an absolute monster.
Yeah, it was. Bradford City, 1998. I remember that game where Delroy played on the left-hand side, and he absolutely ruined them.
He destroyed them.
Yeah, he did. Fantastic. So and I've gone for Ian Dunn. So it'll be an interesting one to throw out. Chris, I think you might come last on this one, but we'll see. I think it's just one of those things.
I'm happy to keep coming last, mate. I think I'm confident with my rationale.
The rationale's decent. The rationale's
Oral
decent.
Victory.
And what I would like to do now is we are going to speak to some other people at the podcast that we do. So we're going to hear more rationale. So earlier, Brady chatted to Carlo Van Der Watering from the Reds Report, and he's going to give us the Barnsley point of view. Okay, thanks.
Cool. And I'm joined on the line now by Carlo Van Der Watering from the Barnsley podcast, The Red Report. Carlos, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Win at the weekend always helps. So
if only we could say that.
I'm sure you'll be saying it a lot this season, mate. Anyway, so just wanted to chat to you really because obviously you lost Gerhard Struber, but you've got your new boss in. So it's been quite a lot happened this season already. So what have you made of the season so far?
Yeah, it's almost like become like Barnsley to have at least one or two managerial changes per season, isn't it? We had Standall, he did really well, and then that stalled, and then Struber came in. We had the Great Escape away at Brentford. I think since Valérien Ismaël come in, he's done the little things right. We know Coley Woodrow's a striker, so you don't play him in the number 10 role, and Coley's already scored more goals than last season because he's up front. We brought Matty James in from Leicester, who we've had before in midfield. Purely because it allows Alex Mowat to move further up the pitch, and then he can score the sort of goals that are on like goal of the day. Well, whenever he scores. So he's installed lots and lots of self-belief, and the fitness is, I have to say, it's immaculate. The high press, the intensity, and it's literally for 90 minutes. So we've been very impressed by him. The results are definitely very, very positive for Barnsley. It's great not to be in the bottom three at Christmas, because that's normally our target is to just be out of the bottom three. So he's done really well. He's steadied the ship, installed self-belief, playing players in the right position, and the results are coming alongside.
Yeah, and like you say, Valérien Ismaël has seemed to transform Barnsley in such a short space of time, really. So what are you guys expecting for the rest of the season?
In fairness, I said at the beginning of this season, but then that didn't happen under Struber. All I ever wanted, everybody loves the club more than any other club. All I ever wanted was to compete in the Championship. And you could say, well, we competed last season because we survived. We only survived because of the point deduction at Wigan. Well, let's be fair. And I think it just shows that with the same players, I know we've had a couple brought in, but with 90% the same players, it's all about man management. When you've got the youngest squad in the EFL, it's about how you work with these young players. And love them or hate them, the Barnsley board have done that absolutely spot on. If you look at the last three managers we've had, Standall got us promoted, Struber got us, not relegated, kept us safe last day. And I think what you see with Valérien Ismaël is he gets the best out of the players he's got. So if we can compete rather than just survive, I would be really happy if the season finished today. Absolutely mid-table, and it gives you something to build on then, doesn't it? So just to compete and be an all-round decent sort of Championship club will be ideal for us.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of similar to what I wanted this season. So obviously we were talking about it before we start recording, how gutted we are that it's a Yorkshire derby on Boxing Day and we can't go. What are you expecting from the game?
Listen, you've got a decent up-and-coming gaffer, haven't you, who will have done his homework on Barnsley, and he'll have seen that against Sheffield Wednesday, again against Swansea, within the first 3 minutes, we went a goal down. Our style of play has its negatives. I think the three centre-backs, maybe not Mads Andersen, but the other two do lack a bit of pace. So you see a lot of teams having some joy with the high ball over the top. And if you've got a pacey front man, which I know you have, that can cause us problems. And I think if you allow Barnsley to play their style of play, I think that's when you sort of run into problems. We've had the most difficult matches, and they've actually been the last three. So Swansea, Wednesday, Wickham. And it was sort of like, it was really hard because we never really got in our stride, and it became like hoof and hope football. I mean, we can say that because it's Wednesday anyway, but literally just booting up the pitch and hoping somebody gets at the end of it. And it wasn't pretty. Against Wickham and against Wednesday, we came on top, but against Swansea, we didn't. And that was a couple of days ago, we lost 2-0. I expect us to be pretty even. I mean, you couldn't be more even, these two teams, Huddersfield and Barnsley, than what they are at the moment. Same number of points. We've won the same, lost the same, drew the same. I think you're above us because I think you've scored a goal more, although our goal difference is the same as well. So it's a shame because it's great because everybody always talks about these Yorkshire teams when you talk about your Sheffield United and your Leeds. But let's fair. I know they're a division higher, but they're not pulling any trees up, are they? So the informed teams are Huddersfield and Barnsley. So, and it's a shame that it's Boxing Day and we can't go. It'd be good. I think Huddersfield have always been a decent side. You went up, then you stayed up, you came back down. And I think it's all, for me, it's all about the midfield. It's for Barnsley. We like play the ball on the floor. quick interchanges of passes. If you cancel the midfield, then you give yourself a chance to score. And, like you say, you come off the back of a decent win at the weekend. We had, 3 wins, and then we lost against Swansea. They've had a week's rest. So, it's a shame we have to watch it on iPlayer, but definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, same here. I think it's, like you say, 2 exciting teams play the right kind of football, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to it. I do kind of push everyone for a score prediction. So what are you thinking for this game?
Well, I've always thought, honestly, be even. I don't think that there'll be many goals. What I have seen from Barnsley is when we lost the game, we've always come back really, really strong. And I think his man management's got a lot to do with that. So I went for 2-1 because you will score a goal, because most teams do against us. But I think we'll just nick it by a single goal. So I'll go for 2-1.
No, that's great. And just before we go, I mean, you covered it a little bit, but what have you kind of made of us this season? Just be intrigued, because obviously it's another Yorkshire club, I always kind of like to keep an eye on them, and I suppose it's the same for you. Yeah,
it's when you look at the fixtures, and you sort of think, you look at what teams are around, you think, we could go above these because these are loose. But then, like, was it Watford for you at the weekend?
Yeah.
And you do it all right, don't you? You don't go on, well, a bit like Barnsley, you don't go sort of like on a massive run, and sometimes you don't get the result you want against teams you think you would get them against, but then teams higher up in the table, you take 3 points from. It's the style of play. There's 2 things I like about it. It's the style of play, but what I like, and I'd like to think Barnsley is very similar, we never shout about being the biggest or the best or whatever. We just play our football in the Championship. Fans have always been decent. And I am more gutted because, when the fixtures come out, you think, that's the one you look forward to. Sheffield Wednesday always think that we look forward to a day out there. We don't. For me, it's always, when do we play Huddersfield, either home and away? When it came on Boxing Day, I thought, COVID will be over by then. We'll all have injections. We'll all be fine. And I'm absolutely gutted because on Boxing Day, when we would normally be somewhere in Lancashire, and I genuinely think we will not finish far from each other anyway in the final table. More than likely, I think the January transfer window is very, very important for Barnsley. The system they've got of bringing in younger players, developing them and selling them on is fantastic. The problem is when they are doing pretty well, and when you look at a Callum Styles that's been with us for a couple of years, we brought him for Bury, he's playing really, really, really well. He's now getting interest from elsewhere. We just have to hope that by the end of January, he is still a Barnsley player. And I expect us to be very close on Saturday as well as at the end of the season. And I would see us both finishing sort of comfortable in mid-table. I really do.
I think you're absolutely right, Carlo. But thanks so much for coming on, mate. And best of luck for the rest of the season. After Saturday, of course.
Yeah, that's the same for you. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Okay, thanks to Carlo for doing that for us. It's always good to speak to Carlo. Really smashing bloke there, Brady. Okay, right, lads. It's time for the creamy beige skinny chinos. It's time for David Wagner's blue cap, the New Balance trainers, the Vision Express glasses of the month, Mark Robbins' glowering glare. How do we set up to get something and our predictions on the day? So ideally, given what we know so far, we're recording this on the 21st. The games are on the 26th and 28th, I think. So we're a good week away from the Blackburn game, but so our selections may be a little bit on the light side towards lack of info, really. Chris, I'm going to go with Brady, first, because I realise I've gone to you first quite a few times, so I like to be fair. Brady, what have you gone for in terms, and how would you line up against Barnsley and Blackburn? What you don't have to name the 11, I guess, overall, but what tweaks would you make for this one?
I'd keep the same team, to be honest. I think I was impressed with us at Watford. I also think we ain't got a lot of choices given some of the injuries. The only thing I'm toying with, and again, you kind of mentioned it, Matt, it is time for Bakuna to have a good game. But I think if he doesn't at Barnsley, the only change I'd make is maybe swap him out for Pritchard, because again, I think he's someone who needs to come good, and he can play on the left wing. So that's kind of my only changes, really. But same team. I was really impressed with Scofield at the weekend as well. Made some fantastic reaction saves and seems to, keep his place. Again, I don't know what's happening with Hamer in general, injury-wise anyway. But yeah, not many changes, to be honest. Just keep the same team and try and get the results.
Yeah, so we spoke to, on the main podcast, we spoke to Phil Senior, and he was saying that keeping the same team, helps you gather momentum, sort of gets you on a roll and helps you gather momentum. And, I listened to Phil, and I think it's, a good point that he's made. And I will probably do the same thing as well, try and keep it as close as possible. And Town have used more players than the majority of the bottom half of the division as well this year, which was a surprise to me. So yeah, I go for Scofield. Scofield, I think it's really important if you're going to blood players in a season, I think a mid-table season, and I think Stephen and David Hartrick might have said this on their podcast earlier, actually, that I think it's really important when you have an okay season. This is the time to kind of blood in one or two young players, because you're not at risk of going down, and you're not going to go up. So Ryan Scofield for me now takes the gloves, providing he's fit and well and he's in form. So I would, even though Ben Hamer's played well, I'm going to give it Ryan Scofield. The same back four, Pippa. Romani Edmonds-Green falls into that category as well for me. So Romani's done really well. And I've been really impressed with him. So he stays, Naby Sarr stays, Harry Toffolo stays. And I like the midfield three now of Eiting, Hogg and O'Brien. I think there's pretty good balance in there. And what I did like what Carlos did with regards to Bakuna and O'Brien and swapping them over to try little things differently. And I would try to do that again maybe in this game. I think both of them can find little pockets of spaces to hurt Barnsley, and I think that'll be an interesting watch. And Benzer, obviously, and it'll be interesting to see how Fraser Campbell is, because Fraser Campbell's obviously picked up a bit of a knock 10 minutes in against Watford and soldiered through, so we'll see where Campbell's at. But Cian Harrop may appear on the bench, I would imagine, after playing in a youth team game. So Fraser Campbell starts up front. Chris, what are you going with? And again, Blackburn, I would keep the same team for both if possible.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to keep the same team for both of those games over the festive period, to be honest. I can see the merits in keeping the same team from the Watford games. You've got a week, virtually, just over a week. Exactly a week. Sorry, what am I about? To keep that same team. So I can see that. I think then you maybe have to make a couple of changes for the Blackburn game, particularly. Could be a very different type of game as well, and being at home. So yeah, I'd keep it similar, but I think there'll be a couple of changes then, even though we've not got much to change for the Blackburn game. Okay.
Score-wise then, who's going to throw their predictions in first?
Go on, mate. I'm happy to stick my neck out. I'm just shocking at this. So I mentioned the Barnsley game first. I'll do. In the last 8, they've won 4, drawn 4, which says they don't have many draws. So there's going to be a draw. That's the logic that I've come to now. So just completely forget everything else that's gone on and just go with that. I think we'd probably be happy with the draw. They're in a, we don't seem, I don't have many memories of us doing well at Oakwell. It'd have been great if there'd have been some fans there. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game. They finished games really strong. They scored 8 and only conceded 3 in the last 15 minutes across their games this season. So I can see us maybe going in the lead, maybe early in the second half, and then pulling one back later on. The Blackburn game could be absolute chaos, as I mentioned before. I really fancy that to be plenty of goals. Again, they're similar to us. I think they struggle away from home. I think we'll be ready to come back home, and I think we'll win. And I think we'll win 3-2.
Red House?
Well, sorry, someone was kicking off at my 11 there, so a bit of a pod secret for you there. So Barnsley, I think, again, because it's Christmas, you get funny games, because it's a Yorkshire derby. I also think as soon as we're on identical points and wins and losses, I think it's going to be a draw, but I think it's going to be, I predicted it last week and it didn't come true, but it resulted in a win. So that's my logic here. So I'm going 2-2 again. I think we're both prone to a mistake and could be interesting. I think Blackburn, again, maybe being confident because there's more games coming up, but I think that's going to be a crazy game. And I think that's going to be 3-2 to us. So quite a lot of goals to enjoy over Christmas. Hope I'm right.
So you're both going 3-2, Blackburn. Yeah, so predictions, Chris, I'm similar. I've gone for a draw at Barnsley. I just think that I look at Barnsley's games and I saw Bournemouth kind of rip through them. And Bournemouth and us play, I wouldn't say an identical brand of football, and Swansea, I think, have beaten them recently, but I would liken as more similar to those kind of sides than your Birmingham's, etc. And they seem to have caused them a few problems, but I don't think we're as strong as them either. So I've gone for a draw on the basis that we'll probably have some joy, but probably not good enough to quite keep them out. And I think a draw would be a good result. I think you're very right in that as well. And Town versus Blackburn, I've probably gone a bit more conservative with this. But based on the strength of Blackburn's injury crisis, I think both teams will be tired. I think there'll be gaps. And
yeah, that's a really good point.
I've gone for a 2-1 to Town, but the way I think it will go is I think Town might go 2-0 up again at home, and then take the foot off the gas with more games coming up, and Blackburn will probably pull one back, and then that's how it goes in my head anyway, that it's going to be 2-1, and then maybe a bit of a very sort of squeaky bum time at the end, if you like, as Blackburn pour forward for another. But that's the way I see it going. 4 points, that'd be fantastic. I think have we all gone 4 points there?
Yeah.
Look at this positive show, aren't we? Positive preview show. So that's what we've done for the prediction. So let us know what you guys think as well. And when we pull our finger out in the new year, we'll definitely have this this competition set up as well. Right. So one thing I want to mention first before we get into our final bit will be when we talk about Christmas at a football club through the eyes of Mr. Markham. The other day, I partook in a Christmas podcast in aid of the Huddersfield Town Fans for the Foundation. HTSA organised a joint podcast between ourselves, Stephen Chickens, Utabia Terrier, and the Town Social. And we got together, had a chat, had a little bit of a quiz, and it's all in aid, I should say, of trying to make money for the Huddersfield Town Foundation for Christmas as well. So if you... I obviously will apologise because, I don't like having people think that they're hard to pay to listen to me because I'm not that great or anything. But, the money does go to the Town Foundation, and that's the most important thing. You're not paying to listen to me, thankfully. But yeah, so that will be available. It should actually be available when this podcast goes out. So we will advertise that. And
can we give any spoilers, mate?
It's just a 2020 review.
I've heard the rumour mill was you were pretty elite.
I was embarrassing, but I'll let people decide on what level. But I was pretty embarrassing at something, and I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing how that happened as well. So, but we'll see. So the Super Pod 2020 Town Foundation fundraiser is out now, and like I say, it all goes to a good cause, and you're not listening to or paying to listen to me as a professional or anything. So there we go. So that is done. And Christmas as well at a football club. Mr. Markham, what's it like?
Yeah, it's a really interesting time because obviously depending on what sort of momentum and what sort of moment you're in, it can be either real bits where you really gather that team spirit can really increase even more, or it can also be a bit like Groundhog Day and you can easily get into a rut. So I think, obviously being inside of the club, there's two main things really that are the big things to think about. And this is, obviously it's easy for fans to maybe forget that the lads and the players and the staff, they have their families and everything too. And the one thing that every year about November time, there's two things. Obviously, one's the Christmas party, but obviously that's not the case this year. And then it's what does this manager do? What does this staff do for Christmas Day? Now, I've worked loads of Christmas days and I've had it where we've been off. I've had it where we've done it in the morning. I've had it where we've done it in the afternoon. I've had it where we've travelled to the hotel on the evening and trained at night so everyone can have the day. And it's just, there's no right or wrong. I genuinely believe that I was working out, when I've been working with Town on Boxing Day, I've only lost 1 out of 8, which was interesting because I thought that would have been a lot worse. However, there was some disappointing draws in there, to be honest. But I think there's no real rhyme or reason for it, the way that I see it, in terms of that sort of Christmas Day conundrum. Obviously, I think it's a really special, obviously for loads of reasons, but I think it's a really special time. Everyone looks forward to the Boxing Day games. think it's a really good point you made, Brady, about Barnsley. The Barnsley game would have been a really good game. I think it would have been a full house at Oakwell. It would have been a really special occasion. And I just think, when I was growing up as well, it's part of the Christmas period, and not being able to get up and go to the game. I think this is probably the game that I'd miss more than any of them, of going to actually being able to go live. I think it's part of so many families' traditions, and obviously, particularly with it being a big game this year. So yeah, like I said, it can be a real tricky one. I suppose when I was younger, I was just happy to be in. I wanted to work all the time. I actually really liked the atmosphere of working Christmas Day. It was a job that obviously I loved and everyone else did. At the time as well, we were flying, and it was just good to be in and being around. But obviously you had the lads who were maybe travelling from a bit further, and obviously had younger families. And now I've got a young family myself. You look and think, it must be hard. And I think it's just a little one to remind that although footballers, I'm not trying to cry poor for footballers or people who work in football at all, but I think it is worth remembering that they do sacrifice a lot, particularly over this time of year. We've had away games at different places and stuff. So I think it's just worth bearing in mind. And I think this year, when it's been such a difficult and tricky year, it would have been just such a fillip, wouldn't it, for us to be able to go to the game.
I think that's one thing we've missed, especially with the football that we're playing at the minute. I think I was having a conversation earlier in a WhatsApp group, and we were suggesting really that not having fans in the stadium has probably helped the club initially this season. The likes of Mbenza, Ben Hamer especially, not having fans there has really sort of given them the freedom to play football and improve. And I think it's got to the stage now whereby we're in 12th. And I think everybody's buying into what Carlos is delivering as well. And I think having fans back in the stadium now would be a huge boost to them in the same sort of context. And I think having the town fans back in would be a wish for the new year. But obviously we're bound, and obviously safety comes first, doesn't it? At the end of the day. But just on Christmas, it's just thinking about what it's like, Chris. Do you get time to open your presents in the morning, or is it straight out of the door at 8:00? The wife's at home, basting the turkey, and you're out.
Usually have usually had like an advanced committee of players who would come into the manager's office and want to know, right, what time we in, what time, the lads might be living here, the lads might be living there, we're going to stay over, what we're going to do, obviously as soon as the fixtures come out. So it was really different, some years it'd be, I remember one year we had the day off. I think 2 years I've had the day off, and one we won and one we lost. That was the only one we lost where we did have a day off. But then we've had some where you come in and out really quick. I remember one where we didn't even, the only things that were open in Canal Side, no one wanted to come and open the main building. The only thing that was open at Canal Side was the porta cabins, and they were freezing. So it just doesn't make, at the time, it didn't really want to make people come in and get changed, spend a lot of time there. The big thing for me, obviously, trying to do the team prep was with the coaches, was actually looking at where the sort of, when we do the team meeting. So that ended up invariably, the lads were so keen to get off and get in quite late, and obviously spend as little time there as possible away from the training pitch. We try and do the meetings and maybe sort of give a little bit back to the lads if they were in on Christmas Day. So we'd do team meetings maybe on the morning of the game, or we'd do a bigger one on Christmas Eve, and then maybe just do walkthroughs on the field. So there's ways around it to sort of keep it, because you've got to get the balance right as well. It's all right saying, they should be in, they should be working, but when you're talking about morale of a group of lads, you need to keep that up as well, especially depending on what sort of moment you're at in the season. So it really is a delicate balancing act of making sure that the lads are well prepared, and you also keep the spirits up, because depending on what type of different moments, obviously, it's such an important thing.
My wife's just had a Christmas hamper delivered from work. Did Huddersfield Town ever do anything like that with players, or do they ever do presents, or do you do Secret Santa and things like that?
Yeah, they used to do. They used to do. Obviously, the staff Christmas do was not one for the players, but the players would obviously tend to have their own Christmas do's. And I'm sure if you listen to the Under the Cosh, as we mentioned last week, you'll hear of some absolutely mental stories about some of the goings on in them, and I can confirm and deny some of them as well. But I think the main one was the club was always really good at putting on the staff Christmas do. So the coaching staff and the wider staff group who worked with the players and obviously around the club, that was always a real feel good environment. And I think the way that people always viewed it is obviously not just the players and the staff. You've got people who work in the club, that obviously I think of people like Sue Beaumont and Robin and the people and the girls that work in the office and doing all the working with all the really good initiatives that we have and making sure that the club functions. They're working on their Christmases as well. So I think it's I think people sort of understand that that's part of the privilege of working in football. And I think sometimes, like I said, depending on what moment you're in, it could be brilliant and it wouldn't even feel like going to work. But there's a couple of games that really spring to my mind. Boxing Day, where it really did genuinely ruin your Boxing Day, and that then if your family's maybe not as much into the football as you are, or so when you're bringing your work home on Christmas, it can tend to be a bit of a mood killer. So I've also had that side of it as well. So it is. I miss it. I'd love to get back into it at some point, but I think it's just an interesting one for people to maybe think about, actually having to do that and thinking about the sacrifices that are made by people who work in the club and people who work with the team.
And Chris,
I realised that the backroom staff went in as well. Do you know the likes of the marketing and whatnot? I never realised that was the case.
Maybe not on Christmas Day, but even all around Christmas, while we're all clocking off now, Mad Friday, there's no Mad Friday, it's Mad Christmas.
Yeah, it's a lot of games, isn't there? Brady, what were you wading in with?
No, sorry, mate. I was going to say you don't have to reveal any names, but the kind of joke about footballers at Christmas is certain players get bookings so they miss the Boxing Day game. Was there any? You don't have to name players, but was there any people who did that at town?
I can't remember anything like that off the top of my head. No, because obviously that would have been. I think the accumulation of bookings is probably an easier one to get away with, maybe if I had to wrap my brains, but I can't remember anything where someone's just sort of last 2 minutes just gone and hacked somebody over just to get, because ultimately, like I think we've had discussions before as coaching staff, and it's like, well, you just get them in. You'd probably make them train twice. Rather than give them, and get any time off, and you still have to, nearly every occasion, if a first team player is not playing, they're expected to come to the stadium, particularly on Boxing Day. So they're not getting anything out of it, especially.
It's interesting. I think there's probably a lot of things that people don't realise, in terms of who works and what goes on at a club at Christmas, because obviously it's a very busy time. We're crunching a podcast together, because of the amount of short games in short time. So that's really interesting at the football club, and I think we'll probably call the podcast there today. Thanks for that little insight, Chris, and we might actually look to you for some more insight as the weeks go by. If you've got any more stories, we might lean on you a little bit more. But thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to Magic Rock for continuing to sponsor the podcast, and thanks for the interaction you guys give us as well. And make sure that you keep voting for my choices in Return to the Mac as well, and I'll keep liking your tweets in response. That's the deal that we've got going on. So thanks for listening again, and we'll be back. The main podcast will be back before, but I think we'll be back possibly after the Blackburn game. Looking forward to the new year. Okay.
Merry Christmas, guys.
And Merry
Christmas.
Oh, what a night. Late in May in 2017. Schindler scored, it was a heffing dream. What a feeling, what a night. Oh, what a night. Wagner singing, we are Premier League. The greatest sight, St. George's Square to see. What an evening, what a night. Oh, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes that chance. Oh, what a night. Lost so safe and mesmerizing me. Low charge and flattened all Chelsea. Stamford Bridge, oh what a night. Whoa, I got a funny feeling when he walked and a fence, and then the commentator yelled he takes a chance. Oh,